Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Joe Palmer begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Paramedics, fed up with ramping at hospitals, are threatening to remove patients from emergency departments and return them to an ambulance if they're forced to wait too long for treatment. It's been described as a call for help from frontline workers. But late today, the plan was scuttled by the workplace regulator.
An all too familiar sight, ramped ambulances waiting. A chronic lack of beds forcing paramedics to stay with their patients as emergency departments across the state overflow.
You're stuck, and where it is a requirement to carry a portable radio on you, you can hear jobs going off around the place, and it's not uncommon now to hear priority 1 case wherever, no response.
Now frustrated, Hobart paramedics are taking matters into their own hands. A leaked email to Ambulance Tasmania bosses revealing plans to remove patients from the ramping area of the Royal Hobart Hospital.
They believe it's safer to treat patients back in the ambulance where they have privacy, where there's security and where they're able to treat patients more properly.
The threat, if patients are triaged to the ramp for more than 30 minutes, they'll return their patient to an ambulance where staff are more familiar with equipment. Saying physical injuries, miscommunication and privacy threats caused directly by ramping continue to occur.
We really applaud and support the work of our frontline service personnel. They do a great job in often difficult circumstances, and we will do what we must do, which involves extra staff, more doctors and more nurses.
They're faced with a government who won't take their concerns seriously and who have continued to fail to adequately resource both the hospital system and the Ambulance Tasmania service.
What's the plan to stop ramping?
So in terms of ramping in itself, it is a matter in terms of the bed availability in the Royal Hobart, and we have 44 new beds that are actually coming on with K-Block.
The protocols were due to be introduced tomorrow, but late today the Health Department says it's been overruled by the workplace regulator.
An inspector has actually been on site over the last couple of months and has looked at the areas of concern issued in the notice and has determined not to issue any further improvement notice. So therefore the notice is set aside.
While there is a temporary reprieve for health bosses, this is far from the end of the staff battle for more resources. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
Investigations are underway into the death of a 32-year-old Victorian man at Hobart's waterfront in the early hours of this morning. A jogger had tried to assist the victim, who was struggling in the water, but was unable to save him, with police recovering his body hours later. Louise Hedger has the details.
It was here at Victoria Dock at around 4:15 this morning when a jogger passing by noticed a distressed man in the water. He tried to help him but soon lost sight of him. Police were called, arriving on scene within minutes along with police divers.
Was not able to be located immediately, and as a result of that the police divers were called in and unfortunately located a deceased male in the water.
Locating the man's body just after 6 a.m.
At this stage, there's nothing to indicate any suspicious circumstances, but like any death, we do treat it seriously. So there are a number of inquiries that we are going through.
The man has been identified as a 32-year-old from Victoria, of Asian appearance, a slim build, clean-shaven and with short dark hair. He was wearing black pants, a blue long-sleeve shirt, a grey linen jacket and brown shoes. Police are now calling on anyone who saw him in the area this morning to come forward.
Part of the investigations to actually determine what he was doing at the time. What we do know is that he was here on a work-related trip and that he was with work colleagues earlier this morning.
The man's family has been notified and a report will be prepared for the coroner.
Bass Strait ferry operator TT Line has pleaded not guilty to animal cruelty charges after the deaths of 16 prized polo ponies. Lawyers appeared on behalf of the state-owned company for its first appearance in the Devonport Magistrates Court today. Letitia Wallace has more.
It could be 9 months before a hearing gets underway into the case against TT Line and professional polo player Andrew Williams. In late January last year, 16 ponies which had competed at the Barnbougle Polo died during the journey back from Tasmania. Today, lawyers representing TT Line, the operators of the Spirit of Tasmania, and 2 horse truck drivers appeared. TT Line is facing 28 counts of failing to ensure the horses were individually stalled and 1 count of using a method of management likely to result in unreasonable and unjustifiable pain and suffering to the animals. Mr Williams is also facing similar charges. The court heard the case for both parties will take place together and could take up to 3 weeks next year, with more than a dozen witnesses expected to give evidence. The lawyer representing Thomas Martin, whose 12 horses didn't die, but who's also facing charges in relation to failing to ensure the animals were individually stalled, asked for his matters to be dealt with separately at the conclusion of the other matters. Magistrate Leanne Topfer agreed and approved the request. A preliminary hearing to discuss legal arguments is set to take place in March before a likely hearing in August.
4 people, including 3 men linked to the Bandidos outlaw motorcycle gang, have been charged with kidnapping. It's alleged the group kidnapped a 33-year-old woman from a home in Devonport in the early hours of yesterday morning. Police say the woman wasn't injured and they were all known to each other. The group faced the Devonport Magistrates Court late this afternoon, where 2 of the accused were granted bail and the other 2 were remanded in custody to reappear in February. Police have been forced to rescue 2 adults and an infant from the Overland track near Marion's Lookout at Cradle Mountain after they were stranded for hours in cold and wet conditions. They began the journey on the track last night but were forced to pitch a tent and wait overnight due to inclement weather. The Westpac rescue helicopter was grounded due to dangerous conditions, meaning a ground search crew had to walk the group out to safety. Authorities say the trio was not physically injured, but are warning other hikers to consider weather conditions before they take to the tracks. Local taxi drivers are urging the government to reduce the number of taxi licences by introducing a buyback scheme. Some in the industry say it's been decimated by increasing competition from Uber, and the livelihood of drivers is at risk.
Ewan Bleefman has made this vehicle his office for the past 17 years. But following the introduction of Uber, he's struggling to make a living.
Working 14 hours a day, you'd be lucky to get 150 a day.
Ewan bought his taxi plates for $88,000, but says now they're barely worth a third of the price, and he wants out, as do many others across the board.
So it's been broken marriages, things like that's not good.
Joining Andrew Wilkie in calling for a taxi plate buyback scheme to be introduced, similar to other states.
So that any taxi owner that wants to exit the industry can exit the industry at a fair price, and then that will leave less vehicles on the road, so those that remain can make a decent living.
Despite the crowded market, with around 1,600 Uber and taxi drivers in Hobart alone, the government is still offering new taxi plates. But it's considering re-implementing a pause on sales.
The Tasmanian government's working to ensure that we have a level playing field for the on-demand transport industry. That includes taxi drivers.
The bottom line is the taxi industry is on its knees, the Uber drivers aren't making any money, and something's got to be done about it.
The government says it will be making an announcement on the issue later this year. A bumpy road ahead for hundreds of drivers.
No one's making any money. We're the ones at the coalface. We're the workers. And we're suffering.
Louise Hedger, 7 Tasmania News.
Turning to the Tasmanian fallout from the election autopsy, our political reporter Michelle Wisby joins us now. Michelle, good evening. What did the investigation find about Labor's performance here?
Joe, the report highlighted the former Labor-Greens alliance and a view the party was too Hobart-centric as key issues in Tasmania. Labor's members suffered around 5% swings in the electorates of Bass and Braddon, losing those seats. The report found it could have lost Lyons as well if the Liberals candidate Jessica Whelan wasn't disendorsed amid a storm of controversy. The review claims Bill Shorten's announcements of $50 million for Mona and $20 $25 million for a Tasmanian AFL team were misrepresented by opponents as Hobart focused. State Labor's alliance with the Greens back in 2010 continues to plague the party. This investigation says it's still a sore point with voters. The review has been critical of the centralised nature of the campaign headed up interstate. And Joe, there's also opinion that made them less reactive to local issues that suddenly popped up during the election race.
OK, thank you very much for that analysis. Michelle Wisby joining us there. Fire crews were called to a Chigwell property at approximately 2:30 this morning, finding a 6 by 6 metre shed fully alight. The fire causing approximately $70,000 worth of damage to the structure and its contents.
We're still conducting our investigation. However, we believe the fire possibly caused by an electrical fault somewhere within the shed.
The incident is believed to be caused by an overloaded power board, with the TFS reminding people to be cautious with appliances. 2 Chinese icebreakers have made a pit stop in Hobart on their way south to Antarctica. The Shorelong and Shorelong 2 are stocking up on supplies, including 11 tonnes of produce and 1.5 million litres of fuel. With almost 200 people on board the 2 vessels, experts say the relationship has been years in the making.
Increased employment in all the small and medium-sized businesses that support the Antarctic sector, and a great economic benefit for the state.
The visits come amid heightened scrutiny of Australia's relationship with China. The state's hopes of having its own team in the National Basketball League remain on a knife's edge, with the state government still yet to commit any financial support towards the push. But NBL owner Larry Kesselman is urging Tasmanians to keep the faith.
With Tasmanians expecting an answer on an NBL licence by the end of the year, the clock is ticking, but the state government won't be rushed.
We're having a look at the proposed approach, and we'll give consideration to supporting it.
Following a recent architectural assessment of the Derwent Entertainment Centre, NBL owner Larry Kesselman says the state government will need to chip in at least $20 million towards renovations, or up to $100 million if they're feeling generous.
Part of the budget is going to go towards just getting the place safe, let's say, the fact that it doesn't have air conditioning and all really basic things before you even get to upgrading for what the venue needs to be.
But with several sporting codes battling for a piece of the government funding pie, it says the ultimate decision will be based on value for taxpayers.
But it is a lot of money that's being sought, but nonetheless it's an exciting proposal, and the government is looking at it carefully, as it should. Spending other people's money, we will only support something that stacks up.
Despite the apprehension on their end, Kesselman is still moving ahead on his plans to purchase the asset, with the NBL releasing concept designs today, while the Glenorchy City Council says it's hoping to have a contract of sale finalised in a meeting on December 23.
If all goes well, to start work on the centre in June, July, and I think we can get it done in a 12-month period. If they decide they don't want to proceed with it, then I'm not quite sure what Tasmania then does with the venue itself. Does it continue to be just a neglected venue for another 10, 20, 30 years?
Kesselman is set to meet with Premier Will Hodgman on Monday. Tom Cooper, 7 Tasmania News.
Another boatload of tourists has buoyed hopes of making Beauty Point a regular cruise ship stop. The Caledonian Sky brought more than 100 visitors to the region today. It's one of 2 luxury vessels dropping anchor in the Tamar Valley this season.
I think Beauty Point is the ideal place for these smaller boutique ships, and we're hoping that there'll be many, many more.
We're definitely looking for a target around about 12 to 20 ships a year in time.
The local council is also finalising plans for a $3 million redevelopment of the wharf. Tasmania's Central Highlands has proved itself as an area of rapidly changing climates. Last week threatened by bushfires, this week blanketed in snow. This image shows local police officers on the job in 2 vastly different conditions. The Great Lake Hotel was nearly invisible as white snow covered the region, while the Cradle Mountain Hotel was another location to receive a dusting overnight. And this time lapse shows flakes coming in all day at Little Pine Lagoon, which hit a low of -1. A boil water alert for some residents of Hobart's eastern shore has been lifted. The temporary alert was placed on Tuesday after routine water sampling at the Lauderdale Reservoir revealed traces of E. coli. The cause of the contamination is continuing to be investigated, but Taswater says samples are now coming back clear.
With the approval of the Department of Health, we've had several clear tests to show now that the work that we've done has resolved in good water, clean water, and people can safely drink from the tap in those locations.
Residents who've had tank water delivered since last Monday are being advised to continue boiling their water until their supplies are disinfected. Nearly 60 children will pack beanies to school after losing their locks for a good cause. Student after student braved the shave in a big-hearted gesture that's raised thousands of dollars.
You'd be lucky to find a seat in this classroom, but then fighting cancer has always been a popular subject at Trevellyn Primary School. The cause has been all the buzz for the past 8 years.
It kind of tickles.
59 students and even a teacher made the small sacrifice.
Well, I just want to help people that are going through a rough time. Well, lots of people lose their lives or have to deal with it every year, so it's good if I make a change.
Some simply had big hearts, while others had reasons close to their hearts.
Because my granddad died from cancer, and also my brother did it, and he begged me to do it, so I did it.
The efforts have helped the school raise more than $20,000 for the charity canteen. Nobody's more impressed than their assistant principal.
Oh, it's just their beautiful nature. They're such kind and compassionate students, but it's a tradition that's built into Trevellyn Primary School now, and they're just, the empathy that they all show is just truly amazing.
Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Police and emergency service workers have been awarded for their bravery and dedicated service at a medal ceremony at the Police Academy this afternoon. The Commissioner presented the awards in front of the recipients' proud families in recognition of their contribution to the community.
To say thank you to all our police officers and state service members around the state that have served the community extremely well, many over long years as well, and often in trying conditions.
More ceremonies are being held in Launceston and Burnie next week.
Good evening. It was a wet, cold and windy day across Tasmania today. Hobart reaching 13, a high of 15 across Launceston and Burnie, 14 in Devonport. Other centres today, Friendly Beaches reached a high of 17, 13 across Strawn and Lowhead and 15 at Flinders Island. On the close-up, cloud is covering Tasmania, which is associated with a low pressure system to the south of the state. Further out, Tasmania and much of the southeast of the country is covered by low-level cloud due to a westerly air stream behind a cold front. Tomorrow shows a strong west to south westerly flow remaining over Tasmania, which will ease as a high pressure system approaches. Southwesterly winds tomorrow 15 to 25 knots, increasing to 30 knots about the north, swells up to 5 metres in the west and south and up to 2 metres in the north. A gale warning is current for southeastern coastal waters from Tasman Island to southeast Cape for southwesterly winds. A strong wind warning for northern coastal waters from Sandy Cape to St Helens Point. Another strong wind warning for eastern coastal waters from Wineglass Bay to Tasman Island, and for southern coastal waters from southeast Cape to Low Rocky Point. A warning to sheep graziers is current for the Bass Strait Island, northwest, southeast, Midlands and Upper Derwent Valley forecast districts, and a bushwalkers weather alert for the Central Plateau and Western forecast districts. Tomorrow's forecast now, showers across Hobart and Campania, Huonville 13. In the north, a high of 16 at both Launceston and Devonport, possible showers at Georgetown. Wynyard and Burnie expecting a shower or two, 13 at Strawn. Showers across St Helens and Port Arthur, Swansea 15. The UV forecast, high 7s across the state. Looking ahead to Saturday, showers about the west and south. Sunday, showers about the west and south, easing later in the day. And Monday, showers expected about the west and far south. Capital cities looking sunny in Perth tomorrow, 37 in Brisbane and a shower or two in Canberra. And onto current temperatures, Hobart mostly clear and 10, Launceston looking partly cloudy and Devonport mostly cloudy and 11. That's all in weather tonight. Back to you, Joe.
Lovely. Thanks so much for that, Jackie. That's all from us for now. We'll see you a bit later. Bye-bye.